We are in the season of Epiphany, enlightenment, this time between Christmas and Lent, where we actually celebrate the disclosure of God to the world. God has shown God's nature to us. And Epiphany and the readings of Epiphany invite us to reflect more deeply on the nature of God. And this passage from Isaiah helps us do that. Let us hear the words of the prophet. Have you not known? Have you not heard? Has it not been told to you from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? It is he who sits above the circle of earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain and spreads them like a tent to live in, who brings princes to naught and makes the rulers of the earth as nothing. Lift up your eyes on high and see who created these. Why do you say, O Jacob, and speak, O Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord, and my right is disregarded by my God? Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint and strengthens the powerless. Even youths will faint and be weary, and the young will fall exhausted. But those who wait for the Lord will renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not faint, and run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. This is the word of God for the weary people of God. Please be seated. Isaiah is speaking to a very, very defeated, discouraged, tired, weary bunch of folk who are in exile in Babylon. They have been not drugged, I don't think, but they have been drugged, they have been taken, forced from their homes, the place that they loved, the place where their heart was, the temple destroyed. Some of the folk were able to get away and scattered, so some of the family is missing. And this other group has been taken into captivity in a foreign land with different people who have a different record. This is where we have some of the Psalms about crying near the river, their tears flowing, trying to remember the songs of Zion. Sing me one of the songs of Zion. They are so lost and confused, and they cry out, God, where are you? You have forgotten us. You don't see us here. You've left us here with these crazy folk. Where are you? And Isaiah comes to these folks and says, hello, y'all. Have you forgotten? Have you forgotten? One of the commentators said that we people have a common illness. We are theological amnesiacs. We forget that God has said, once you were no people, but now you are my people. I am your God. I am with you. Isaiah calls them to remember that no matter where they are, God has always been present. And I sometimes wonder if some of the cartoonists and those things that go around on Facebook know the lectionary, because one of the cartoons I saw this week was of a bird laying on the psychiatrist's couch And the doctor said, "So what's the problem, Mr. Sparrow?" And the sparrow said, "I just have this feeling that someone's eyes are on me." His eyes on the sparrow. Okay. Even the bird, nature itself can feel God's presence. But God's people tend to forget. They tend to forget that I have been with you from the beginning. They tend to forget. And so Isaiah, the prophet writing here, reminds them, do you remember who made the earth? Do you remember? Do you remember Moses? Do you remember Egypt and the Red Sea and all that? You remember those things? God is always with you. The problem, though, is bad things happen, and we get in crisis. And just like when you have a terrible, no good, awful, bad day, all you can focus on is that bad part. We can't seem to picture what life was like, and so we start worrying and fretting, and we try to control it all ourselves. But what the psalmist says is, count your blessings. I live my life in movies and musicals. When you're worried and you can't sleep, just count your blessings instead of sheep, and you'll fall asleep counting your blessings. When my bankroll is getting small, I remember when I had none at all, and I fall asleep counting my blessings. Some of you don't know your old movies very well, but some of you are my age and you know, or you were raised by me and you know, that is from White Christmas. And Bing Crosby sings it to Rosemary Clooney when she can't sleep. When we're worried, when we're facing a future that is scary, it helps to remember where we've been and where God has been along the way. As we talked about this passage at Bread yesterday, Harold, wherever he is, said, "Oh, Debbie, that's just like that poem you read at Jimmy Massey's service. It's about the footsteps. The footsteps in the sand. We know that. There were two sets of footprints, but then there were one set, and then there were two, and there were one, and I turned to God and said, so when there's one, that's when all the bad stuff was happening to me. Where were you, God? You didn't know my way. You weren't with me." And God says, "Oh, my beloved, that's when I was carrying you." We're in a scary time. Some of us are in personal scary times. Crises happen. Epworth is in a corporal, scary time. The United Methodist Church is in a scary time. If we look at the news and the world, holy moly, we're living in a scary time. And we get ourselves all wrapped up in knots, and we get testy with one another. And we try to figure out how we can make it all happen our way. Because we know what's best, and we want to be in control. But what the psalmist is saying is, do you remember that I'm with you? That I'm here? Wait on me. Wait on me. Some of the translations say, the way to renew your strength is to hope in the Lord. And that would have that sense of being patient and being in prayer and just trusting that God's will, the right pieces will all come together. But a better translation is actually those who wait on the Lord. And well, that sounds like the same, but it's really not. Because this verb wait is really not a passive verb. In the Greek, it's a very active verb. It has more the sense of wait like the wait staff at a restaurant. To serve and to do and to care for. Kind of like the way Jesus waited on the disciples there at the Last Supper. Remember? Jesus served them the bread. Jesus served them the wine. Jesus served them the word. Jesus washed their feet. Jesus waited on the Lord by doing God's work for God's people. One way to renew your strength might be to take care of that theological amnesia and to remember all the times God has carried you in the past. But another way to renew your strength is to serve God. Wait on God. How many times have you done something for someone else? Have you served the homeless? Taken some cookies to a neighbor? This week I was picking up some Starbucks for Mom and I got up to the window, went to hand my card, and the lady said, "Oh, the car in front of you paid." Woo! Made me feel good, but I know that person up there felt good too. And so I paid for the people behind me. Waiting on God, when we serve others, we can get out of that pity pot that we get in. We can stop focusing on all the crisis that's around us. Climb out of that hole a little bit, out of the depression that these worries put us in, and we can see a glimmer of light, and our spirits are lifted as on eagle's wings. What Isaiah is saying to these folk is, God has always been with you. God always will be with you. And you'll get your strength back when you start remembering that and doing that which God called you to do. Focus on doing. And you will find your strength. And your vision will clear. And you will go, oh, this is what I have heard. This is what I know. Isaiah gives us an image and says, look up at the eagle. Look at how it soars. Now imagine that God is the eagle and has swooped down and picked you up and is carrying you. That is how you remember and you get your energy back. You remember the love of God and you serve God. Wait on God. As we go into prayer, I want you to maybe think about all the no good, very bad, terrible, awful things swirling around you right now. Personal, intimate, corporate, big or small. Think about those. But then, start thinking about all the times God has been there and all the trials God has taken you through. And then take a moment to ask God to show you where you can wait on God to help you renew your strength. Because the journey continues. We have far to go. We can only do it if we wait on God together. Let us be in prayer.